Hi, this is Tapcat. Welcome back to part 2 of my latest Q&A. We still have just a ton of questions to get through, so I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. So I had 2 people ask me about an Xcom 3 and what I would like to see done with that. I do have a few thoughts. Number one, and this is a very simple thing, but it apparently isn't, and that is I would really like a bug-free or nearly bug-free Xcom. I haven't ever seen that, and it would really be a nice change. Number 2, I would really like strategic options. So what I mean by that is, I feel a lot of times like there's really one path to victory, whether you're talking about on the strategy layer or on the map. That, they keep you on such a short leash in terms of time that, like, when it comes to picking scanning targets, for example, in XCOM 2, I'm just always scanning for, to open up more territories so we can get to the alien bases as quick as possible, or, open up more resistance groups, because otherwise the doom clock is just going to wreck you. And so I'm okay doing that, but then I'm not really making interesting choices. It's like, do this or lose. So you learn, okay, I'll do this. And I don't really, I don't mind doing it, but it's not interesting either. So I would really like it if, you could focus on one thing and it would give you this advantage, or you could focus on another thing and get a different advantage. So that I would like a lot. And likewise, why not have it where you could stealth some missions if you wanted to? Or if they unleash us from the clock, maybe you can try to go like a longer way. Like if you followed kind of the border of the map to get to an extraction point, it would take a little longer. You wouldn't get as much experience because you're not fighting as much. Maybe you wouldn't really know that. I don't know, just something rather than, hey, I've set up this gauntlet. You have to run through it. You just have to kill every guy that's out there. Again, I don't mind doing those battles, but I think the game would be more interesting if in some way you had multiple approaches you could take to both the strategy layer and when you're on the map. So I would like that as well. And in terms of story, I would enjoy it if they would follow up on one of the seeds, like at the end of Enemy Unknown, they suggest that there's another group of aliens out there who are more powerful. And that, basically humanity should be aligning with the elders because that way our combined strength might be enough to defeat this unknown enemy. And then at the end of XCOM 2, by the way, XCOM 2 just completely disregarded that seed they had planted. At the end of XCOM 2, because they show a statue of an elder underwater, it seems like maybe they were teasing terror from the deep. Now Chimera Squad comes out. There's no mention whatsoever of anything like that. If you're going to kind of put little tips like that, Easter eggs, whatever you want to call them, but planting seeds for potential sequels, just don't ignore them. Either don't do it in the first place or follow up on something. So I wouldn't mind seeing that. Tombot22 asks if I think Firaxis is using Chimera Squad to see how well the new gameplay is received to test the waters for an upcoming XCOM 3. Well, it's a really interesting question. And of course, I have no information whatsoever. So this is pure speculation, right? I think that not specifically for XCOM 3, but yeah, I think they put together a smallish team and said, look, we want it to feel like XCOM for the most part, but feel free, to just do what you think would be interesting. And if it's new and different, that's great. And I think some of this stuff will be incorporated in future games. I'd be very surprised if we never saw interleaved turns again. Does that mean I think it'll be in XCOM 3? No, not really. I think XCOM 3 will have the traditional turnstile. I could be wrong, but I think it will. But I do think you'll see that again, and I think you'll see other things come from it. But for example, one thing I don't think you'll see, like I would really be surprised. This idea of canned characters, pre-made characters handed to you, and that's it. I do not believe you'll see that in XCOM 3, and I would be pretty surprised if we saw it in any numbered sequel. I think it would have to stay in these spin-off games because even for me, I really like Chimera Squad. I made no secret of that. I really do miss that, and I don't have the same attachment to any of these guys like I do, the characters that you make and the characters you invest in. That's just a whole other level. So I would think that not. Okay, now let me get back to your question. So I think you'll see maybe some of it in XCOM 3, but probably not a ton. And I think you'll mostly just see it crop up in the future in various other games in the franchise. I also think, by the way, that a big part of the reason for the existence of Chimera Squad, I'm sure that 2K would never admit this, but Gears Tactics was announced at least a couple of years ago, and I don't believe for 1 second that it's a coincidence that this game, Chimera Squad, was released less than a week before Gears Tactics. I would not be at all surprised if development on Chimera Squad started immediately or very close to immediately after that announcement of Gears Tactics, and the release date 100% was planned to help squash that launch. I just can't imagine any other reality. So I think that was its real purpose. And if they were going to do that anyway, then they wanted to also, check out different approaches to XCOM. Chris Bertolino asks if I would kindly do a video on modding XCOM 2. Now, I actually have done that. I have my 5 favorite mods, and that's part of my guide playlist. But he goes on to say, it has more to do with gameplay issues and the RNG he feels like detracts from the game. So he's not really looking for the kind of mods that I highlighted in my video because those are very much quality of life and they don't change the fundamental gameplay. Now, I don't generally play with a lot of ones that change gameplay. The main one that I did was A Better Advent 2, and that makes the game tougher. It doesn't make it easier. And it was in mostly tweaking enemy AI and abilities and stuff. So I would be, more than happy to point you to some of this stuff, but unfortunately, I'm not really familiar with a lot of the type of mods for the things you're talking about. So what I would do is just go to Steam Workshop and do a search for RNG, or like if you hate the timers, you didn't mention it, but let's just use that as an example. You could search for timers and you can find a lot of stuff in the workshop if you just look for it. So I'm sorry I can't be more specific, but that's what I would do if I wanted to find them. Deb Clatterbuck really asks a question that takes me back to my past. Have you ever considered getting back into Magic the Gathering since Arena is out? Magic the Gathering was a game I really loved playing. And when I started the channel, I had thought I might even upload Magic videos. I ended up not doing that, and I ended up not really playing the game, and I haven't gone back to it. I have heard a lot of good things about Arena. It's not, there's like, how can I say this? Nothing about Magic being flawed in any way is keeping me from playing it. What keeps me from playing it is there's a tremendous time investment to get back into Magic. To play it well at all, you need to memorize, within reason, every card in the available set. Whatever cards are legal in the format you're playing, you need to know. Not because they'll all be in your deck, but because you may face them. And it's very important that if I have a plan, I know what you can do to mess up that plan. And I can then at least try to work around it or know what I have the potential to walk face first into. If I don't know if I have no idea what cards you might be holding, like once I see, let's say you're playing white, blue. I mean, if I don't even know if counterspell is is legal these days, that's pretty important. I need to know based on what mana you have untapped and all that, like what you might be capable of. So anyway, no, I haven't really considered it because basically the way I see Magic is this. It is a lifestyle game. You play Magic. You play it a lot or you don't play Magic. And I don't have the time to play Magic a lot. So Sadly, I don't know if I'll ever play Magic again, but it will always be on my short list of favorite all-time games. And listen, I really hope that they keep building on the success of Arena and that Magic can really do well online, because they did not do a good job on that front for years and years. And that's why Hearthstone ever had a chance to become a thing. Hunter Aldridge asks if I'll do a character guide for Chimera Squad. Are we going to see guides for the Templar, Skirmishers, and Reapers? Also asked some questions about Three Houses. So, very good question. I will tell you, I wanted to do a number of guides for Chimera Squad, but wow, I like what I see. I've done 2 guides so far, and after some initial interest, the views have just plummeted on them. And other than the people, obviously there's subscribers to my channel and they enjoy watching the playthrough. We at least have hundreds of people watching that every day, which I am grateful for. But when it comes to the guide, they're getting like 5 views a day or something like that. So the problem is, I have to invest so many hours into making a guide, and it's really hard to get up for that if you know that it's going to come out and just kind of land with this big old thud and then lay there and nobody watches it. So I don't know. I wouldn't mind doing it. I would be happy to, but I don't think so. Not unless I see something change in terms of the interest in the game, because I don't see it right now. And even like the number of people playing it on Steam and stuff is just really low. So the second half of your question, are we going to see guides for the Templar, Skirmishers, and Reapers? I don't know that we will. Now, XCOM 2 guides, this is amazing, by the way, to me. The guides that I made like 3 years ago get way more views than the stuff that I did on Chimera Squad, a month ago or whatever it was. But the problem is that everything you're asking about is from War of the Chosen. And I played War of the Chosen 1 campaign. I feel like I did not play those classes enough to really speak with authority on them. And also now my memory is just so faded. I would have to play at least 1 more campaign. And as I've said before, I did not love War of the Chosen. So I'm not eager to play it again. So it could happen someday, but probably not anytime in the foreseeable future. Land for Delhi 114 asks what I think is a very interesting question. What do I like most about the videos and Let's Plays? Editing, playing the game, reading the comments section, or anything else? I mean, to varying degrees, I enjoy all of it. Well, most of it. Editing is not enjoyable. Editing, it is literally something, people are paid to do. And there's a reason why you have to pay them to do it, because it is just work. And likewise, when I write scripts for videos, it is just work. So the editing and scripting, it is just a thing that you have to do if you're going to do certain types of videos. Now, playing the game, obviously that's fun as long as you enjoy the game. That's not always the case, but I certainly try to pick games that I, believe I'll enjoy. And then most of the time, to varying degrees, I do. And then what was the other part? Yeah, reading the comments section. That is the biggest one for me. I mean, it really is. I don't even know if I could continue. I don't know that it would be worth it to me to put the time into making videos if I published them. And let's say I got the exact same number of views and all that, but basically no comments. I don't know that I would get any real satisfaction out of that. I love the back and forth. A lot of times you guys come up with stuff that just is hilarious to me, or interesting questions, all that. So reading the comments is number 1 for me. Andrew Small says, you can change one thing in Chimera Squad. What would it be? This one really made me think for a little bit because, as I said, I do like Chimera Squad. Now, I could say get rid of the bugs, because the game does crash on me sometimes and there are, bugs that crop up. But I'm going to stick to the actual gameplay. And the one thing that I thought of, and maybe I would think of more if I gave it some time, but I mostly am happy with the game the way it is. What I do wish, though, is when you get the chance to recruit new members, I don't like that they give you a choice of 3 and you pick 1. And they do that several times. But like, if they give you 3 and you want them all, but you can only pick 1, it's very likely you'll never see at least one of them again, and possibly both. So what I wish they would do is just say, oh, you can recruit somebody, and give me a list of everybody who has not been recruited yet, and let me take who I want. And not make me, play roulette about who will ultimately be in the campaign. I don't like that. The Fridge Freezer asks, what was my most memorable sunset? So I think my answer would be that when my wife and I got married, we were fortunate enough to go to Hawaii for our wedding and honeymoon. And we had this one sunset where we were on the north shore of Kauai. And there's a hotel there, very posh hotel, which we were not staying in, by the way, but we were there for the sunset. And it's very pretty, as you might imagine, being in Hawaii and all that. But what was cool is, I started off like most people, just trying to shoot the sunset. And then I noticed a group of friends, and there was a woman who was taking a photo of a couple of her friends with the sunset as her backdrop. And so I took a photo of all of them with the sunset as the backdrop. And so I just have this absolutely gorgeous sunset in the background, and then the silhouettes of the 3 of them. And it's photography, is a long time hobby of mine. And so that is one of the more memorable photos I've ever taken. And of course, consequently, that sunset is one of the more memorable, if not the most memorable I've ever had. So that would be it. Nick Ford says, have you considered doing standalone game reviews? Yes, and I actually may still do one for Chimera Squad. I'm debating whether I want to sink another 25 or 30 hours into it, because I don't know that it'll get a lot of views at this point, but I would like to. Also, have I ever considered playing Blood Bowl 2 or even heard of it? I'm not sure I've heard of Blood Bowl 2, but I've certainly heard of Blood Bowl, and I'm actually more familiar with it from the tabletop world. I know that they made a computer game version of it, but I had heard of it from years ago on the tabletop world. I don't know a lot about it, but it always seemed like a cool thing to me. Also, he asked if I'm glad that I'm back doing videos. And yeah, absolutely. I enjoy it. I don't always enjoy every little aspect of it, but for the most part, it's fun. It's fun, especially when you're making a series like Chimera Squad, where I'm having fun playing the game, having fun reading the comments, all of that is great. And his last question was, did I gain any positives or learn anything from my hiatus? And I did. Probably the biggest positive is that I had been unhappy with my weight for some time prior to that. And for a variety of reasons, I did go ahead and finally get off my backside and start exercising and being a little bit more careful about what I eat. And so I dropped, a good amount of weight and got to a point where I'm trim and feel good about myself again. So that's fantastic. Chemical Imbalance asks, how's the cat doing? I think I remember you talking about having to edit around the disturbances in the past. I know I've heard you have to set the headset down because of the fur ball on more than one occasion. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much of a hindrance is having a pet when you are producing these videos? So those are great questions, and there's no question having a pet, it can be quite a disturbance. I suspect dogs more so than cats, but animals, they need or want attention when they need or want attention, and they don't really have a lot of interest in the fact that you're recording. So as for how my cat is doing, unfortunately, she got really sick almost exactly 1 year ago. She was born with a heart defect. The vet, when we adopted her, had pretty well told me not to expect that she would have a long life. And he didn't put a number on it, but it was really clear he didn't think she would be around for too many years. But we fooled him. She was right around 15 years old last year when she she had been getting worse for some time. I could see it in her behavior. She was getting more and more fussy as time went by. And then last May, she really got bad. And so, yeah, without going into, I guess, all the details, I basically stayed home with her for about a week because I wanted to do everything I could for her last days. And she literally passed away on Memorial Day last year. If you're in the US, you know when that is, but it's late May. And yeah, so very, very difficult for me because we were super close, and it's still hard. I still get choked up talking about it sometimes. So as far as how much of a hindrance it is when recording, most of the time, you got to realize I recorded over 1,200 videos with her by my side, and she was great. I mean, every now and then she would want to go get her food or something like that. And I would have to get up and let her go. And then those are the videos I would need to try to edit out. And I didn't mind that though, for the most part, because most of the time she would just sleep. As she got older and sicker, that started to become more of a problem. And, it would take me a good hour and a half when I got home just to get her settled on her chair so I could close the door and start recording. But then, maybe 10 minutes in, she would get fussy and she'd want to jump down. And I think having the door closed bothered her, so it really did become quite difficult. There were times when, 2-3 times in one video, she would want to jump down and not be confined in the room, not have the door closed. So it became very difficult to keep recording with her at that stage of her life. And I wasn't even sure that I should try to do that. If I had just let her out and closed the door, that would have really stressed her out as well. And because of her heart condition, I was always very mindful of that and wanting to do everything I could to, make her life as stress-free and pleasant as possible. So yeah, it wasn't a big issue early on and for most of her life, but maybe the last 6 months that I was recording prior to taking the break, it did become quite difficult. Patrick Haggerty asked how I feel about Phoenix Point and did the Epic Game Store move bother me at all? So in the last Q&A, I answered my thoughts about Phoenix Point. Did the Epic Game Store move bother me at all? Yes, it did. Regarding Phoenix Point, I think I said in the last Q&A that I want to make a separate video about that. So I'm going to just hold my thoughts on that for the moment. But regarding Epic Game Store, yeah, it bothers me. I do think it's commendable that they offered a refund to everybody who had backed the game. And not everybody who made that kind of move did that. A lot of people had to be dragged kicking and screaming to refunds. That said, I don't like offering something for sale, telling people this is what you're going to get, and then because somebody waves money under your nose, you say, no, you're not going to get it. So good for you for giving a refund after you broke your word, but I would have really preferred it if you had kept your word. That's how I feel about that developer. I think they burned a lot of goodwill in the community. I mean, a lot of goodwill in the community. And ultimately, I think it's going to hurt that game quite a bit. And frankly, it's just a shame because I think Julian Gollop was somebody that was kind of revered for being the initial creator of Xcom. And now he's really tarnished his reputation. So that's unfortunate. Wafer Juice asks, if I ever get sick of playing a game, but have to continue just because it's part of the series and it gets you the views. Yes and no. So yeah, I absolutely get sick of playing some games. Certainly not all by any stretch. And I would even say it's a reasonably small minority. But I don't continue for views because honestly, there's no Let's Play I do that gets so many views that I'm really worried about it. It's more that whenever I start a series, it's like I'm kind of inviting you on a journey, right? And then if halfway through the journey, I just say, I'm just going to go home now. So that's kind of rude, right? That's not a very nice thing to do. I have done it. I mean, I talked last time about Banner Saga 2 because I just couldn't bring myself to play that game anymore. I'm not going to start a whole other diatribe on that game. And sometimes I have to, for like I mentioned also, what's it called? Planet Coaster, that even if I hadn't burned myself out on that game, the problem was that technically the game engine couldn't support how many objects I'd placed on that map. So it was just no longer viable for me to keep playing. So it happens that I have to quit. But every one of those kind of scars me in a way. I really don't like it. And one thing I just don't ever want to have happen is that the people who follow this channel start to feel like, why should I start watching one of his new Let's Play series? Because he's not going to finish it anyway. Like there's a good chance he'll just quit partway through. So, for the most part, I want you to feel like if I start down that road, I will walk to the end if I can. It's one thing. I'll give you a perfect example. Let's say I was playing XCOM Enemy Unknown. You can fail that game. That game lets you lose. So if I played and I got that end screen where you lose the campaign, I'm okay with that. I invited you on that journey and we walked it to the end. That a let's play doesn't mean let's win. So I'm okay with that. But sure, I have continued. There are definitely games that I didn't enjoy and I just kept playing because I had committed to the series and I did not want to let down. I don't care if there's 20 people watching it. They deserve to see the whole thing. If I can, as long as I can do it and not be all sour about it the whole time, then I'm going to do my darndest to give them that. David Magyar asks, what is my favorite non-water drink? You ask most people this. I wonder how many people would say something alcoholic. I have a feeling a lot, but I don't really drink alcohol, so you're not going to hear that from me. I'll give you two. The staple of my diet is milk. Love milk, and I really survive because of milk in a lot of ways. But if I was just going on taste and what I enjoy drinking the most, I have to admit, I love a good Pepsi right out of a fountain. Not a bottle, but yeah, a soda fountain. Give me a good old regular Pepsi, and I am down with that. Justin Flick asks how I feel about live streaming via Twitch or YouTube. That's another good question, and I have talked about this before. Very difficult for me to do streaming because so often I don't know what time I'm going to be able to record. And I do not have, to be successful at streaming. I mean, man, people expect you to sit down and just grind for hours and hours. Number one, my voice would not hold up to that. And number two, I wouldn't I would just get very tired of it. I could do that, for a Saturday, I could probably sit down and binge a game like Xcom that I'm in the middle of. But I could never do that day after day. So, I have actually thought about trying to stream. One idea I had was, hey, it'd be kind of fun is to try streaming XCOM Enemy Unknown and just see how that is. Something turn-based. I haven't touched Enemy Unknown in a long time. So if I don't stream it, I'll probably try doing a video or two just to see how it goes. Yeah, I would dip my toe in the water. I just don't think that I'll ever be quote, a streamer, because I do think my personal life would interfere with it a lot and it probably wouldn't work that well for me. I also don't know that I would be good at it, but I'm willing to at least try. A Lone Wolf asks, what's the game you look forward to in the future? So as far as games that have been announced, I'll give you a few. There's one called 1971 Project Helios, which is supposed to come out in the next few months. I'm interested in that for sure. There's another one called Company of Crime that I at least want to learn more about. I don't generally like playing, quote, the bad guy, and you kind of do in that. You're building a crime empire. But it's kind of, XCOM-ish, but with crime families. And I believe the melee, the combat is more melee focused. And so I think those two would probably be the ones that I would put at the top of the list. Chicken Slapper asks, are you into Pokemon? Not quite the same level or type of strategy as normal strategy games, but the competitive scene can take a lot of planning and forethought, as well as adapting to situations on the fly. So no, I'm not really. I tried Pokemon Go. I played that for a couple of weeks, really enjoyed myself, then I was done. And when the latest, Pokemon Sword and Shield came out for the Switch, I was somewhat interested. And I looked at it, I watched a little bit of gameplay. I think it's a little too grindy and repetitive for me. And I don't think there's enough interesting decisions for me to make. Now, maybe, I'm selling it short and I needed to watch more. But I think overall, that's also a game that's a huge time sink. And if I'm going to play a time sink, there are others like Magic the Gathering that I would probably take first. TJ Gameplay asks, how do I think my tactics from Chimera Squad differ from XCOM 2 or Enemy Unknown? Also, which is my favorite. Look, they differ in some ways a lot. In other ways, not so much. I mean, like XCOM 2, you're trying to identify who's the most dangerous guy here. Who do I need to worry about taking out first? So, that's kind of a constant. Enemy Unknown didn't really have that because you tended to get homogenous groups, like, hey, there's 3 floaters. Hey, there's 3 chrysalids. So unless more than one pod came at you, you didn't have to make those kind of choices. Also, the interleave turns, that totally changes a lot. So yeah, I would say they're different, but in almost too many ways for me to say. And then at the same time, it is funny because at the end of the day, you're still just trying to shoot the most dangerous guy with as many dudes as possible, as quick as possible, so that he's not on the map anymore. I think the other big area that it varies with is you get being able to screw with the timeline. Mitigation in Enemy Unknown was really limited. XCOM 2 gave you more with stuff like mimic beacons and stuff, but yeah. So as far as which one is my favorite goes, it's really hard to answer that. If you ask me which one I have the most fun playing, it's Chimera Squad. Because Chimera Squad just isn't the same kind of pressure cooker that the other games are. So while I play it, I am having more genuine fun. But Chimera Squad is kind of losing my interest by the end of the second campaign because it's not very deep. I mean, I don't want to undersell it. There is depth there, and you definitely have to think, but it's not the same, right? I mean, I think we can all probably agree that it's a smaller, lighter game than the other two. So, on that level, for replayability and stuff, the other two games bury it. I have a lot of fondness for Enemy Unknown because it was the first XCOM game I played, and some of the experiences Enemy Unknown offered, like your first terror mission of a campaign, man, so intense. And for my money, there isn't anything in XCOM 2 that I get the same reaction from. And I don't mean that there's nothing as difficult, but chrysalids, when you first face them in Enemy Unknown, they are pretty damn terrifying. And that's a huge thing for me. But then XCOM 2 is the first XCOM game that I felt like I, to some degree, mastered, if I can say that. I could beat it consistently at the highest difficulty level in Iron Man mode. So that was a big thing. It's definitely, I think, the XCOM game I played best. So I don't know. I don't know which one is my favorite. That's the honest truth. I like them each in different ways. Kenny Holmes says, if you could be any XCOM alien species other than human, which one would you opt to go for? Oh, Kenny, that's torture. None of the above. That would be my preference. If I had to pick one, I mean, I don't want to be a Viper. I don't want to be a cyber disc or a chrysalid. I don't know. I don't want to be any of them. Can I just not be? If I could be, I guess, a sectoid like Verge, not the little runty gray ones from Enemy Unknown. I guess if I had to take something, I would take that. Am I forgetting somebody? I don't know. But anyway, what I'd really love to be is like one of the avatars, but that probably doesn't count as an alien race. All right, we're down to the last few. Alex Gunter says, can we please get some more videos with, tips, tricks, guides? And also, did you know Horizon is coming to PC? And I think he means Horizon Zero Dawn. So yes, I did know that. I had kind of forgotten, but I think they've confirmed that. And let me just say this. I have played Horizon Zero Dawn, and man, I fell in love with that game. Within the minutes, I already really liked Aloy as the lead character, and then I really enjoyed the gameplay, including the combat and all that. I loved it for some of the fights. If you wanted to, you could set up all these traps and stuff to really, do big damage to some of these robotic dinosaurs. Before I played it, I was not into that whole thing. Like, I thought, why don't you just have dinosaurs? Why do they have to be robots? That's just weird. Once I played it though, I loved it. And I loved the story that they used to explain all that and fill in the history of that world. There's nothing I did not like about Horizon Zero Dawn. So I would just say, if you don't own a PS4, buy it when it comes out on PC. If you like that kind of game at all, because I am not an open world action game player. I pretty much never play them, but wow, I liked that a lot. Battleland asks, what's your job outside of YouTube, and do you consider YouTube a viable source of income? So outside of YouTube, I work in accounting. And as far as whether YouTube is a viable source of income, that depends on how you mean it. Clearly there's a lot of people who earn a living from YouTube. So it is viable even for that. What the likelihood is of any one person reaching that point, that's a different question. I seriously doubt I will ever reach that level. What I earn from YouTube, it's viable in the sense that it is income, and I appreciate that, but it isn't even, anything in terms of paying my bills. So I don't rely on it myself. I take the money that I earn from YouTube every month and I put it away. And then periodically when I want to kind of rebuild my PC or something, I take that money and I put it toward that. So I've also used it to buy games at times. So essentially I put it all back into the channel. I've never paid for a thing that I wanted, out of the YouTube money, that didn't have to do with making more videos and stuff. Like the reason I rebuilt my PC was to be able to render videos faster. Gravestone Gaming asks, do you have any tips for new players starting with XCOM Chimera? I don't know that I have anything particularly. If you watch the first couple of episodes of my Let's Play, you'll see how I approached the beginning. My combat guide, but there's 2 parts to it. That gives you a lot of tips for the combat side of things. And the rest of the game, honestly, it's not that complicated. And I hear people say stuff like, oh, you have to just go all in on intelligence and you have to go all in on field teams and stuff. No, you don't. No, you don't. I did that in my first playthrough. It didn't really help me very much. I didn't do it in my second playthrough. Didn't hinder me at all not doing it. The main thing I would say is really try and get your training in whenever possible. In the early days, you want to get everybody that +2 hit points as quick as you can. And then as they start getting some pretty nice abilities, some of them are amazing. You want to get them in there and be able to take advantage of that. I guess that's my real hot tip. And then just have fun. That's the most important tip for any game. It isn't always about min-maxing. Just have a good time, and then you'll want to keep playing. All right, that's going to do it. Thank you very much for just so many terrific questions. I really appreciate it. I had fun answering. I hope you had fun listening. And thanks for watching. I hope we see you next time.